Hi, I'm Rose Uran, and I'm a student at NYU.
Hi, I'm Radhika Iyengar. Glad to be with Rose. I'm at the Center for Sustainable Development, Columbia University.
Um, so what do you so what initially prompted you to start working on improving climate change in education in schools?
Thank you, Rose, for your question. And it's actually a long journey. I am from Bhopal, and we had this 1984. In 1984, we had this gas tragedy where lethal gas was released from one of the factories that were in the town, and many people had died. Around thousands of people died in just one night in Bhopal. And so at that time, there was no discussion of environmental justice or environmental, it was like a man made disaster, human made disaster. And it was run in a lot of, there were these discussions about the Bhopal gas tragedy in high school, in college level, law students with law students, but nothing in the schools. So it took me a while, and then when I was graduating from Teachers College, Columbia University, with a professor, I worked on this paper, which focuses on the Bhopal gas tragedy and how the curriculum did not really do a good justice to having a good description of Bhopal gas tragedy in the curriculum. So that was my actually starting of my journey. That was in 2010. Paper was We worked on the paper 2000. Was published in 2011 in the Comparative Education Review, which is a journal in international education. And that was my starting of the journey of focusing on climate justice, climate education issues. And then when I started working at the Center for Sustainable Development, with Professor Sachs, I realized that it's not just climate, but it's also climate and the people, which is very much combined with sustainable development. So this sustainable development goals, how everything is integrated and how everything comes together. I'm still learning all these things. So I think my journey is continuing, and I really want to focus on sustainable development. A part of it is climate and how it can be effectively integrated into school curriculum and college curriculums.
That is so interesting. That sounds really, really interesting and really good that you're doing that. Um, what topic on that note, so you were talking about how you realized it wasn't just climate change in of itself. What topics in sustainability do you think are most important to teach?
Actually, I don't have one or two topics, but I feel that uh, in its entirety, the entire sustainable development goals, I think, is a really good framework that the UN has put forward, uh, which combines many different aspects, and it is an integrated system of going through these sustainable development goals, and it cannot be done goal by goal. Everything in life is integrated. Poverty has so many different linkages. Who gets left out, who doesn't get left out, why is there poverty in certain areas, why is there other communities are more rich than the others. I think it has many different dimensions. So I feel that sustainable development needs to be taught integratedly and needs to be really given that holistic treatment. But having said that, if we take uh, justice as a core component of what we need to teach. Social justice, which is, or environment, is a big part of social justice as well. And if we take sustainability as the core, I think if these two topics are given full treatment, then I think a lot of the integration will happen automatically. So, for example, if you are taking justice as a core component of what you need to teach, then there are so many environmental justice social justice issues. Bhopal gas tragedy itself was again a justice issue. Who got the compensation? Who didn't get the compensation? Were there people who were illiterate who didn't get the compensation? Were there people who were marginalized who didn't get the compensation from the government? Then we had all the discussions on the government's treatment and how they had to ramp up their infrastructure and where they're able to do it, the good governance part. So I think there are so many integrated aspects that can come up if we take justice and sustainability at the center. So I think maybe those two topics would be helpful to integrate a lot of the sustainable development goals.
Makes a lot of sense. That the everything being integrated reminds me of that chart that one of the people in the New Jersey Climate Summit showed, where like showing all the links, and it was like all just like a bunch of lines that like made up a big circle.
Right, that was actually the Sustainable Development report on in the US, and that's actually one of the few reports that that we have in the US, which focuses on state by state averages of sustainable developments on where they are in terms of each and every goal. And believe it or not, it's actually a new thing that we have in the US. We have these goals reported by the state. Earlier on, by each state. Earlier on, it was not even, the data collection was not even there. And at least now there is piecemeal data collection. All the indicators are not perfect, but at least there is something to start with. And that shows all the integration. And it's done by SDSN, Sustainable Development Solutions Network, the USA chapter.
Oh, that's so cool. It was really interesting and like helpful to be able to see it laid out visually.
Right, yeah.
Speaking of the New Jersey Climate Summit, what do you think overall still needs to be improved in education, and what do you about climate change, and what do you think has been going well?
Good question, Rose. But so many things need to be done. I think the climate summit was really a starting of a discussion. This is our second climate summit in New Jersey. And what we see is that the teachers and the students have a lot of enthusiasm in bringing up the climate related issues in the schools. We also have the Department of Environmental Protection. We also have the Department of Education in New Jersey, who are really focusing on climate education integration into the school. So I think there's a lot of support and a lot of momentum, even from the First Lady, who actually started this whole idea of having climate education integration. So I see a lot of discussions. I see a lot of student commitment. I see a lot of teachers who are doing this, and we need to continue this momentum, and we need to continue this whole idea of integrating climate education. It is just starting. What we need to be doing much more is, right now we are integrating into these different silos. We still have social studies and science and English and language. That's how we are being educated, because we have to take care of all these different subjects, and the curriculums and the standards are aligned to these subjects. What I don't see is climate justice. I don't see a treatment of sustainability in a systems approach, where you are forgetting about science, social studies, but you are actually taking the whole question on its own and investigating it using different lens. So I don't know if it makes sense to have science, social studies, this subjects, and that standards align. It obviously makes our work easier if we have those standards aligned to those subjects. But then if we are so concerned with the subjects and the standard alignment, I feel that no one will be able to do a full justice to the topic that will be discussed. For example, microplastic in the waters in New Jersey. If we take that is a science subject. It can be a governance, civic education. I don't know how civic education is being taught, and how can we participate and tell the mayors in each county that here is the data, and here is how we need to clean the water because of the microplastic issue, because of microplastic being absorbed in the water. There can be so many different dimensions of one's topic, And can we do a justice of the topic if we divide each subject, if we divide our education into social studies and science um, and arts and language? Maybe we just need to do away with this science social studies and just take topics as they as on its own, and do in-depth analysis and do research based work, and do you know just focus on the research component rather than subject competencies. But maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I see is the gap, that we are not able to provide a full treatment to any topic. Yes, maybe we are doing a full treatment to social studies, but is that going to resolve our climate issues? I'm not sure.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. So like so you're saying that it's kind of bad that to focus so heavily on one subject of like as the social studies aspects of an issue instead of just focusing on the issue and like studying everything around it.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense. Um, and what role do you think that teachers also after the climate summit, what about what about teachers versus administration in the role that they have?
I think teachers play a critical role. Teachers, school administrators, principals, and the what I see around globally, including schools in India, are that teachers again are very committed. They have so many amazing ideas. I keep having all these youth conferences and youth sessions, as we are doing right now, Rose. And I see that there's so much commitment from everyone. They are pushing their students to think out of the box. Students are pushing the teachers to come up with all these ideas and support the students' ideas. So I think there is a big momentum going on right now. So there is a lot of initiation from both end, teachers, students, school administration. Uh, One thing I want to mention here is that what did we learn from COVID? Our COVID journey taught us that teachers and the school administrators are not alone. They have to take into account parents and the communities, and the communities have their own social capital, funds of knowledge, as the literature points this out. That we need to have. There are so many expertise in the community that they are not being integrated into the school system. Every parent brings in their own expertise, and during COVID, parents became the teachers, full-time teachers who were teaching the children not only subjects but also life skills and other things. So I think those, if that could continue in the school system, then it's not just the responsibility of the teachers to teach the children alone. Like in the past days, pre-COVID days, we used to send the children to school. They are learning. Teachers are doing their work. Children come back with homework. Parents are overseeing the homework. But that was, like, I think, a pre-COVID era that must be forgotten. Now what we need to be doing is to integrate parents education, parent expertise that they bring in into the school system, into someone is a lawyer, someone is a doctor, someone is a carpenter, someone is a mayor of a town. They need to bring in their expertise into the classroom, and the teachers and the school system needs to give them the space to be able to do it, so that questions and discussions in the classroom are not about theoretical aspects. They are connected to life related aspects as well, and connect the issues to the issues that they feel that they actually face in their own communities. So I think that needs to be our future of education.
That makes a lot of sense. And I realize that some things that like individual habits that are and like recycling and like stuff like that kind of do come more from like a family setting versus like a school setting.
That is so true.
Um, and what role that was the last question they combined.
Good
Um,
questions. You made me think a
Thank
lot.
you.
Now is the time I need to ask you questions because I have prepared. This is a youth summit. So I need to know from you, Rose, a couple of things that will help us to grow together and to see how we can actually use climate education and education for sustainable development as we go forward. I always miss the global citizenship component because I feel that it's integrated into education for sustainable development, but it's not. It's like a separate pocket which we need to tackle together at the same time. So my first question is, what do you want to learn about sustainable development now that you are in college, you are at NYU, and then what are the things that you wanted to learn when you were in school but didn't get an opportunity?
This is kind of an answer to both of them, but just more about climate change in general because um, in school, I think that kind of what people were talking about in the conference that only very specific subjects focused on it. So I think that like the world religions class focused on some things like about not about climate change, but about like religion, like equality among like people of different groups, and then like obviously environmental science. But other than that, it was kind of more focused on the individual subjects and mostly history, not so much current problems and sustainability issues. And I kind of want to learn more about that in college as well.
Nice. Wonderful. And Columbia, with Professor Sachs, had started this sustainable development, PhD program. So I think that is one of its kind, and I think there needs to be many more of these programs going forward because that fills in that gap of what you're saying, climate education as well as learning about sustainability. My next question is, how relevant are we keep talking about these SDGs, Sustainable Development Goal, but many times it's all about global. These are global goals. These are global goals, and then the government reports them, globally and yearly. But how relevant are? Do you think that they are relevant to your neighborhood, maybe the place that you grew up? How relevant are those? Are the SDGs to your neighborhood?
Like how much we use them or talk about them.
Not really, but do you think that there are elements of sustainable development that are there? Because sometimes maybe we are not using the terminology as sustainable development, but if you sustainable development goals, but if you look at sustainable development more broadly, do you think it is relevant to your neighborhood? And if you could give some examples, or even the place that you grew up.
Yes, I think so because my neighborhood is fairly small, but the school I went to, as well as like a lot of households that I didn't know everyone in the town, obviously, but a lot of the people who I know for some reason were coincident because I know people in other towns that their towns weren't so much focused, but there's a lot of composting and recycling and stuff like that, and so a lot of people it was very common for people to have their own gardens, and then I know some people who had like worm buckets, and I know my community center also had that, like having like they had a place where you could compost, and then people could like buy or for like very inexpensive prices the fruit and vegetables that came from the gardens, and then also a couple of the schools in my area, including the one that I went to, had places like a room in the school that had like you could get people's old clothes, like you would donate your clothes and then like you could come and get the clothes as you wanted. And I think they didn't explicitly say it, but I think it like um emphasized um like ethical consumption, that like a lot of people didn't have like obviously people still like bought new clothes, but it seemed like more normal to get the clothes secondhand because so many people were doing it and it was just like
Oh,
it was
wow.
super accessible. And yeah.
That is really cool. I think that is really innovative in many ways because I'm trying to do something similar in my town. We have a thrift sale where we do these yearly and seasonal collection of clothes, children's clothes, sports jerseys. It is, I don't know if it is catching up, but at least there is a start. So it's great to know that, in your community you're already doing it. And so many great examples without using the SDG language, you are already working, you saw those examples in the neighborhood, and they are obviously all connected to the, climate SDG. So it's great. Thanks for giving those examples. And I feel that we are somehow not using the sustainable development goals language, but whatever activities are going on in our neighborhood are very much sustainable development goals linked. And maybe we should have like local indicators of sustainability, of sustainable development for every town or for every county, so that we can say that here are our goals of sustainable development, and here are, this is how we treat sustainable development in our communities. Otherwise they just remain global goals, and then no linkage to how the communities can move forward. So those are great examples to be included as indicators. um, You've been asking me about integration of education for sustainable development in the curriculum. So now I ask you the same question. How do you think how do you think education for sustainable development and global citizenship education could be integrated into school curriculum? Any ideas from your end?
Um, I know some people have been talking about specific field trips, like to watersheds and stuff, and I agree those were always very fun and interesting. And um, I kind of think more ways that could be fun would be like movies about different things in classes because I know everyone likes movie days in schools. Um, and then also, since like you were saying how it would be good to focus on a specific issue instead of like school subject and then how the issue fits into the school subject. I feel like movies about certain subjects, like the movie about the factory farming, is like specific about that issue, but doesn't just have to be focused on one school subject. And so I think that can be really helpful because it's engaging and it helps the class to focus on one specific issue while also focusing on the subject, but like the issue.
Wow, that is amazing. You are probably half my age, but you are so reflective and so thoughtful in your answers and your thinking. I'm just so surprised that all you young people who are really taking this thing forward and coming up with innovative ideas on how you can learn from experiences and link it to the sustainable development goals. So I think the future is really bright, Rose. Thanks for being so reflective and so thoughtful about the answers. My next question is regarding climate literacy. So we know that in the next 10 years or so there is this focus on green jobs, green careers. But I don't see a link between those futuristic green careers, jobs, to what we are doing in the schools. So, how do we expand climate literacy, and how do we expose our students to those green careers? Just getting some reflections from you.
I think since there's kind of like career fairs, and I know in high school sometimes like obviously it's not to find a job, but it's just to like learn more about other jobs. I and in colleges too, I feel like it could be a good idea to focus it more on sustainable careers because now I what I've kind of learned about in high school was like lawyer, marketing, like stuff like that. But obviously, in like there's in doctor, but there's like in all careers like ways to do like a green option. Like there's sustainable fashion. There's like I know NYU has like a sustainable business degree, and then obviously like for lawyers like environmental lobbying. And so maybe when people are learning, like maybe when classes are teaching about um, like if like a high school has like an ethics course that would go into like maybe the student wants to be a lawyer, so they're taking the ethics course, then maybe that could this class could integrate more about sustainability. Or like if someone is taking, I know some high schools offer like business courses, maybe the course could put in more stuff about like sustainable business, and so it would like better prepare the students for um, learning more about like a career that they could have that's like on the environmental side of whatever career that they would like.
Nice. Those are great ideas, Rose. Wonderful. I think that's hopefully, I think that will be a great start to including green career options and ideas in when the students are in school. My last question is about learning about sustainable development goals. I have noticed that students learn in different ways in terms of SDGs. So where do you, if you want to learn about the sustainable development goals, where do you go? What are your sources? And what are some of the gaps? Do you find information there wherever you are going to get information on sustainable development goal? Do you think that it's comprehensive enough, or do you think that there are some of the gaps?
Usually I go to the SDSN website because it seems to be the most. I've looked up other channels on YouTube and then other websites, but I really like how that website in particular has like a bunch of videos on every kind of issue, and then also specific um, events or like very specific problems within like the SDG goal, and and so I feel like that is a pretty good resource. I do kind of, I wonder if I feel like one gap could be like for other resources, to make them more engaging for like younger children because a lot of resources I've seen and that I personally like are very like information heavy, which is good. But I realize for like younger people, it might be not as yes, it might not be as engaging. So I guess that could be a gap.
That's so interesting. And I actually had the same, at least the idea, but you confirmed it that it becomes so information heavy that students are not able to engage with it, or they get lost, and links lead to other links, and links lead to some other thing. And some localization of that SDG idea also is missing, because sometimes you see, oh, this is happening in America, but you want to see this is happening in a Kenyan village based in Kenya on a particular SDG. So I think that connection somehow is missing. So thanks for bringing that up. That was my last question, and it's really been fun to ask you questions, Rose, as a part of the centering SDGs youth panel. And I'm grateful that you were able to spend time and also answer all these wonderful questions. It's always good to get insights from you as a representative of the young generation, so that we can, as educators, can focus on what your needs are rather than what we assume your needs are. So this, I think the conversation was very helpful for me to gain those insights.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Yes, I had so much fun. Thank you so much. And again, I'm so sorry about the time mix up.
Time difference, no problem at all. No problem. Thank you, Rose.
Thank you so much.